The coffee hit Mara Bennett's pale blue scrubs before she could step aside. It ran down her sleeve and pooled beside the medication cart while Valerie laughed and called her the clinic's backup nurse. No one defended Mara. They only watched her lower her eyes, reach for a towel, and keep one shaking patient from pulling out an IV line. Then the glass doors opened. Lucian Vale walked in wearing a black suit and the kind of silence that made a busy room forget how to breathe. He saw the coffee. He saw Mara on her knees beside the patient, and he made the same mistake everyone else had. He assumed she needed saving. Minutes later, when a protected witness vanished from the transfer schedule, Lucian would learn that the woman they had humiliated was the only person who knew where the truth had been hidden. Mara Bennett had learned that humiliation made a sound before it became a memory. It sounded like a paper cup hitting tile. It sounded like 3 nurses trying not to laugh and failing. It sounded like Valerie Sloan saying, "Oh, sweetheart, you should have moved faster." Coffee ran through the front of Mara's pale blue scrubs and dripped from the cuff of her charcoal cardigan. The burn was small. The attention was not. The lobby of St. Oran Private Recovery went still. 2 families near the windows looked away. Valerie held the empty cup as if it had betrayed her. "It slipped," she said. No one believed her. No one said so. Mara took one breath through her nose. Then she reached for the towels beneath the reception desk. "I need a dry set of scrubs," she told the receptionist. Her voice was calm. That seemed to disappoint Valerie more than anger would have. "You always have something urgent," Valerie said. "Maybe if you stopped acting like the backup nurse, people would stop treating you like one." A nervous chuckle moved through the room. Mara had heard the phrase before, backup nurse. It meant the person who stayed late, found the missing chart, called the worried daughter, noticed the wrong dosage, and filled every hole other people left behind. It also meant the person nobody thanked. Mara placed the towels on the counter. "Room 12's oxygen alarm has been chirping for 6 minutes," she said. Valerie's smile faded. "That isn't my patient." "No," Mara said. "But you heard it too." Before Valerie could answer, the alarm turned from a chirp into a sharp repeating tone. Mara was already moving. She did not run. Running made frightened people feel abandoned. She pushed through the hall door and reached room 12 just as Mr. Hollis began pulling at the tubing beneath his nose. His skin had gone gray around the mouth. "Mr. Hollis?" "Look at me," Mara said. "He did. Good. Keep looking at me." She checked the oxygen line first. It had kinked under the wheel of the bedside table. She freed it, raised the head of the bed, and pressed the call button once. "Slow breath in," she said. "That's it." Behind her, Valerie entered with 2 other nurses. "What happened?" one of them asked. "The tubing was blocked," Mara said. "Get the pulse ox reading and call Dr. Klein if he stays below 92. The nurse obeyed. Mara kept one hand steady on the bed rail until Mr. Hollis's breathing loosened and the monitor softened into a regular rhythm. "You scared me," he whispered. "I know," Mara said. "But you are all right now." His eyes filled. "You always come." Mara smiled once. "That is the plan." A man in a black suit had been standing outside the room for the last 30 seconds. Mara noticed him only when the hallway fell silent. Silver touched his dark hair at the temples. He wore no badge or visitor sticker. Yet everyone stepped aside without being asked. Lucian Vale looked through the doorway at Mara, at the patient, and then at the coffee across her scrubs. His expression did not change. "Who did that?" he asked. Valerie spoke first. "It was an accident." Lucian turned his eyes to her. "I did not ask what it was called," he said. Mara straightened the blanket over Mr. Hollis's knees. "It is handled," she said. Lucian's attention shifted to her. For a second, Mara felt the weight of it. Not kindness. Assessment. She knew that look from administrators and wealthy families. He saw a tired nurse in stained clothes. He saw a disruption in a place that was supposed to run quietly. He did not yet see a person. "You should change," Lucian said. Mara met his gaze. "I will, once my patient's stable." Mr. Hollis reached for her wrist. "She stays," he said weakly. Lucian glanced at the old man's hand around Mara's fingers. Something in his face moved, then closed again. "Of course," he said. "She stays." A sharp clap of heels sounded from the end of the corridor. Elaine Mercer arrived with her tablet held tight against her chest. She was the clinic administrator, which meant she always looked prepared to explain why someone else had made a mistake. "Mr. Vale," she said, "I was told there had been an incident." "There was," Lucian replied. Elaine's eyes traveled to Mara's uniform. "Nurse Bennett can be a little sensitive under pressure." Mara looked at the monitor. 89, then 90, then 92. She waited until it held. "Mr. Hollis needs a respiratory check in 20 minutes, she said to the nurse beside her. "And no one moves that table." Then she faced Elaine. "I am not sensitive under pressure. Elaine's mouth tightened. This is not the time. No, Mara said. It is exactly the time. Lucian watched her now. Not like a nuisance, like a detail he had failed to account for. A transport coordinator hurried down the hall, breathless and pale. Mrs. Mercer, he said. The midnight transfer file is gone. Elaine snatched the tablet from his hands. Gone where? It was in the system 10 minutes ago. The coordinator looked at Lucian. The witness transfer. The word changed the air. Valerie stopped pretending to clean coffee from the floor. Elaine's face lost color. Lucian did not raise his voice. Which witness? Daniel Russo, the coordinator said. The post-op patient in the secured wing. Mara felt the cold move through her stomach. Daniel Russo was not just another overnight transfer. He needed a specialist in another facility before midnight. His chart had been checked 3 times, or it should have been. Who signed the handoff? Mara asked. The coordinator blinked at her. I don't know. Then find out. Elaine turned sharply. Nurse Bennett, this does not concern you. Mara looked at the young coordinator shaking hands. Then she looked at the secured wing schedule posted behind him. One name had been crossed out in blue ink. A new time had been written beneath it. 11:15 p.m., not midnight. The handwriting was not his. It concerns me, Mara said, because that transport time is wrong. Lucian's gaze settled on the schedule. For the first time since he arrived, he looked directly at Mara as if he expected an answer. She gave him one. Daniel's medication window closes at 11:30. If he leaves at 11:15, he arrives unstable. Lucian asked. How do you know that? Mara held his eyes. Because I was the nurse who stayed when everyone else went home. The hallway went quiet again. But this time, no one laughed. Lucian did not ask Mara to repeat herself. That was the first thing she noticed. Lucian simply looked at the blue ink on the schedule. What should the time be? He asked. Midnight, Mara said. Not a minute earlier. Elaine folded her arms. With respect, Mr. Vale, Nurse Bennett does not manage protected transport. No, Mara said. I manage patients before they become somebody else's problem. The transport coordinator lowered his eyes. Lucian looked from Mara to Elaine. Get me the original file, he said. Elaine tapped at her tablet. Once, then again. The archive server is slow, she said. Mara watched Elaine's thumb hover over the screen. She had spent enough years around electronic charts to recognize someone waiting for a system to give them the lie they had already prepared. The archive is not slow, Mara said. Elaine did not look up. Excuse me? If the file were loading, the icon would be spinning. Lucian held out his hand. Show me. Elaine passed him the tablet. Her fingers shook. He did not understand the charting screen, but he understood people. He looked at Elaine. What was removed? Nothing was removed. Then why are you afraid to let her see it? Elaine placed the tablet in Mara's hands with a tight little laugh. Please, maybe our backup nurse can save us all. The words landed hard. Mara felt the old instinct rise. Keep your head down. Finish the task. Do not make your hurt another person's inconvenience. Then she remembered coffee cooling against her skin. She looked at Elaine. I can check the record, she said, but I will not take responsibility for what I did not alter. Lucian gave one small nod. Agreed. It was not an apology, not yet. But it was the first time anyone in that building had made her boundary official. Mara opened the transfer dashboard. Daniel Russo's name appeared in the center of the screen. A yellow warning banner sat beneath it. Transfer route incomplete. Medication reconciliation pending. Signature missing. The 3 errors did not belong together. One mistake could happen on a busy night. 3 mistakes formed a hand. Someone had reached into Daniel's care and rearranged it. Who has access to this page? Mara asked. Administration, transport, the charge nurse, and the attending physician, Elaine said. And whoever has their passwords, Mara replied. Elaine's face sharpened. Are you accusing someone? I am reading what is there. Mara pressed into the audit trail. Most people saw numbers when they looked at that page. Mara saw a night shift. She saw a handoff marked complete while Daniel was still receiving medication upstairs. At 9:42 p.m., Admin Mercer had opened the transfer order. At 9:44, the destination facility had changed. At 9:46, the medication window had been rewritten. At 9:47, the audit trail went blank. Mara let out a slow breath. The file did not disappear, she said. It was cut. The coordinator leaned closer. Can somebody do that? Only if they have administrative clearance. Elaine gave a brittle laugh. That proves nothing. It proves the record was altered, Mara said. Not who did it. Lucian stepped nearer. He did not touch her. What else do you need? He asked. Mara looked at him. The question surprised her. Not can you fix it. What do you need? A paper copy of Daniel's handoff sheet, she said, and the nursing station log from 8 o'clock until now. Elaine moved toward the desk. I will have someone retrieve them. No, Mara said. Elaine stopped. The person who retrieves them needs no access to the original file. Lucian's eyes remained on Mara. Who do you trust? Mara saw the receptionist at the far end. Tessa, Mara said. The receptionist looked startled. Me? You can retrieve a folder without changing it, Mara said. That is all I need. Lucian turned to Tessa. Go with 2 of my people. Elaine's mouth opened. This is excessive. No, Lucian said. This is careful. Tessa disappeared toward the records room. Valerie drifted closer, her expression polished into concern. Mara, I am sorry about the coffee, she said. Mara did not look away from the screen. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry he saw it? Valerie's cheeks flushed. I said I was sorry. Then say what you are sorry for. The hallway became quiet. Valerie stared at Mara. For months, she had relied on Mara turning every insult into silence. Now Mara gave her nowhere to hide. I was angry, Valerie said. You made me look bad in front of Dr. Klein last week. I reported a missed dose, Mara said. A patient almost received the wrong medication. Valerie's eyes flicked to Lucian. You always act like you are better than everyone. Mara looked down at the coffee stains on her sleeves. No, she said. I act like patients deserve better than everyone. Lucian said nothing, but the assessment in his eyes had become a tension. Tessa returned carrying a thick folder and a dented metal logbook. Mara took the folder first. The paper handoff was signed at 8:10 p.m. The electronic chart said 9:47. The names matched, the handwriting did not. This signature was copied, Mara said. Elaine gave a sharp laugh. You can tell that from a signature? I can tell from the ink. Mara pointed to the bottom of the page. This is gel ink. The secured wing uses black ballpoint pens because the forms are scanned every morning. She turned one sheet over. And this page was printed after the original transfer order was changed. Lucian studied the paper. How can you know that? Mara tapped the lower corner. The clinic changed its printer code 2 weeks ago. This form has the new code, but it claims to be from last month. The coordinator swallowed. So the whole file is fake? Not all of it, Mara said, just enough to move Daniel without anyone asking why. She opened the metal logbook. At 8:31 p.m., someone had written beside Daniel's room number. Do not release before 12. The handwriting was Mara's, but a second line had been added beneath it. Cleared by admin at 11:15. The words were in blue ink, the same blue ink as the altered schedule. Mara closed the logbook. This was planned, she said. Lucian's gaze narrowed. By whom? Mara looked toward Elaine. The administrator was already walking away. Miss Mercer, Lucian called. Elaine did not turn. Do not take another step. Elaine stopped at the end of the corridor. Then she faced them with a smile that no longer reached her eyes. You are making a terrible mistake, she said. Mara held the logbook against her chest. No, she said. The mistake was thinking nobody would read what you changed. Elaine Mercer looked at the logbook in Mara's hands as if it were a weapon. It was not. It was a battered blue notebook with bent corners and coffee rings on the cover, but it contained something more dangerous than any threat. It contained a record. Lucian took one slow step toward Elaine. You changed the release time, he said. Elaine lifted her chin. I corrected an inefficient schedule. You altered a medical handoff, Mara said. Elaine's eyes snapped toward her. There are matters in this building you do not understand. Mara held the logbook tighter. I understand that Daniel Russo was given a medication schedule for midnight. I understand that someone moved his transport 45 minutes early. And I understand that when you cannot explain a change, you call the person who notices it difficult. Valerie stood near the wall, suddenly very interested in the coffee stains on the tile. The transport coordinator stared at the floor. No one came to Elaine's defense. Lucian's voice was quiet. That is not an answer. Elaine turned to him. You are allowing a nurse to build a conspiracy out of a printer code and a notebook. No, Lucian said. I am allowing the person who understands this room to speak. Mara felt the sentence land somewhere deep in her chest. It did not erase the coffee on her uniform. It did not erase the months of being ignored. But it changed the air. Elaine heard it too. Her smile vanished. You need this transfer completed, she told Lucian. Your witness needs a specialist, and the specialist is waiting. That is why I am trying to keep him alive, Mara said. Elaine laughed once. Oh, please. You love being the only indispensable person in the room. Mara looked at the alarm panel outside Daniel's wing. Then she looked at the nurses who had spent months leaving their unfinished work on her desk. I do not love it, she said. I am tired of it. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. Lucian watched her face. For the first time, he seemed to understand that competence had not protected Mara. It had made people use her more. A phone rang in the transport coordinator's pocket. He answered, listened, and went pale. The ambulance is here, he said. Elaine moved first. Good. Mara stepped into the corridor. No. Elaine's gaze hardened. You have no authority to stop a secured transfer. I have authority to stop an unsafe patient transfer, Mara said. And right now, I am doing exactly that. The coordinator looked helplessly at Lucian. Lucian did not answer at once. Mara could see the decision behind his eyes. He was used to people waiting for his command. He was used to a room becoming still until he chose a direction. But this was not his skill. This was hers. He turned to Mara. What happens if he leaves now? Mara answered without hesitation. Daniel's medication has not had time to stabilize his blood pressure. If the vehicle hits traffic, he could deteriorate before the receiving team is ready. The current paperwork sends him to the east entrance. The specialist unit is at the north entrance. And whoever changed the file knew the delay would look like transport confusion. Lucian's jaw tightened. Can you prove that? Mara opened the notebook. She found the page she needed. Her handwriting moved across the margin in neat black lines. Daniel Russo. Medication at 10:30. Recheck at 11:15. Transfer only after midnight. Below it sat a note from the specialist office, copied exactly as it had been spoken over the phone. North entrance. Security gate B. Mara turned the notebook so Lucian could read it. This is not a guess, she said. I wrote it down while the specialist gave the instructions. Elaine reached for the notebook. Mara pulled it back. Do not touch my record. The administrator froze. Lucian's eyes shifted to Mara's hand around the worn blue cover. Then he looked at Elaine. Get Daniel back to his room, he said. Elaine's face changed. You cannot be serious. I am, Lucian replied. The transfer waits until Nurse Bennett clears it. Mara heard the words. Nurse Bennett clears it. No one had ever said that in this building. Not Elaine. Not Valerie. Not even the doctors who handed her impossible shifts and expected her to make them work. The coordinator spoke into his phone. Return the ambulance to standby. Outside the glass doors at the end of the hall, red lights flashed against the rain. No sirens, no panic. Just an expensive vehicle waiting for instructions that should never have been changed. Elaine turned away from them. This is absurd. No, Mara said. This is what happens when the person you call useless keeps every receipt. The words made Valerie look up. Mara met her eyes. Valerie looked away first. A security guard entered from the secured wing. Mr. Vale, he said. Daniel is asking why he is being moved. Mara walked toward the wing. Lucian followed. Elaine came after them. You cannot let her make decisions for a protected witness, she said. Lucian stopped. His voice stayed calm. Tonight, she is the only person who has explained the facts. That is enough. Mara reached Daniel's room. He was sitting upright in bed, pale but alert, with a travel bag at his feet. He looked from the guards to Lucian and then to Mara's stained scrubs. Am I going somewhere? He asked. Not yet, Mara said. She checked his monitor, his medication line, and the color in his face. Her hands moved with the quiet certainty that had never needed an audience. Your transfer time changed without the specialist's approval, she told him. I am correcting it. Daniel looked at Lucian. Is she allowed to do that? Lucian looked at Mara before he answered. Yes, he said. She is. Mara adjusted Daniel's blanket. Then she picked up the bedside chart. The paper chart had a new signature in the release box. She recognized it immediately. Not because it belonged to Elaine. Because it did not belong to anyone who had been in this room. The signature was too careful, too slow. It copied letters without understanding how the nurse actually wrote them. Mara turned the page over. A faint impression showed through from the sheet beneath. The original release note had been removed, but the pressure marks remained. She held the page toward the window. The words appeared in the reflected hallway light. Hold transfer. Await Mercer confirmation. Mara felt her pulse slow instead of race. That was how she knew she had found the center of it. Elaine had not simply changed a time. She had built a chain. A false order. A false signature. A false destination. And every link depended on people believing Mara was too small in the system to challenge it. Mara turned back toward the doorway. Lucian, she said. I need the clinic board called in now. Elaine's breath caught. Lucian looked at the page, then at Mara. Why? Because this is bigger than one transfer, Mara said. Someone has been using this clinic as a doorway, and I think Elaine Mercer has been holding the key. Lucian looked at Mara for a long moment. Then he took out his phone. Call the board, he said. Every member. Elaine's face went white. This is a private medical clinic, not one of your warehouses. No, Lucian said. It is a place where people trusted us to keep them safe. He glanced at Mara, and we failed them. The words were not dramatic, that made them heavier. Mara had spent years waiting for someone in power to say that much. Not that she was valuable. Not that she was special. Only that the system had failed and someone had to answer for it. Lucian turned toward the guards. Mrs. Mercer does not leave the building. Elaine laughed, but the sound broke halfway through. You cannot hold me here. I am not holding you, Lucian said. I am asking you to stay while Nurse Bennett explains your records. Mara looked down at her stained scrubs. She had never wanted to stand in the middle of a crisis. She had wanted a decent shift, a clean handoff, a patient who got home safely. But Elaine had made every quiet thing impossible. The boardroom filled within 20 minutes. Doctors appeared in expensive coats. Investors arrived with tired faces. 2 legal advisors sat at the far end of the long glass table. Valerie stood near the door, no longer invited to speak. Tessa placed Mara's blue continuity ledger in the center of the table. Lucian did not sit in the head chair. He pulled out the seat beside it for Mara. She looked at the chair, then at him. I do not need your seat, she said. I need everyone to listen. Lucian nodded. Then they will. Elaine began first. She has been creating chaos because she is angry about a workplace misunderstanding. Mara did not interrupt. She let Elaine keep talking. She let the woman build her own version of the truth in front of witnesses. Then Mara opened the ledger. This is not a misunderstanding, Mara said. This is a continuity record. She placed one finger beneath Daniel Russo's name. Every time a patient changes floors, receives medication, meets a specialist, or is scheduled for transfer, the details must match. She looked around the table. They did not match tonight. She showed them the original midnight instruction. Then the copied release signature. Then the printer code that proved the paper had been created after the date it claimed to represent. Finally, she showed the audit trail. Admin Mercer. 9:42 p.m., 9:44 p.m., 9:46 p.m., 9:47 p.m. Elaine's lawyer leaned forward. That does not prove my client changed the record herself. No, Mara said. It proves that someone with her access changed it. She lifted the logbook. But this proves why. The page beneath Daniel's entry listed 3 prior transfers from the last 6 months. Different patients, different dates, the same revised route, the same early release time, the same blue ink. Every patient had been transferred through a contractor Elaine approved. Every contractor invoice had been paid through a holding company connected to her brother. The room went silent. Mara's voice did not shake. Daniel was supposed to be the 4th. His medical condition made the wrong route dangerous. But the real goal was not his care. The real goal was moving him somewhere. Nobody could confirm the original plan. Elaine stood abruptly. You have no idea what you are talking about. Mara met her eyes. I know exactly what I am talking about. You counted on everyone seeing a nurse. You did not count on a nurse keeping track. Lucian remained silent. He did not explain her evidence. He did not speak over her. He only watched the room listen. One board member asked, how long has this been happening? Mara turned another page in the ledger. Long enough that I reported unusual handoffs twice. She looked toward Elaine. Both reports were closed before anyone reviewed them. Valerie lowered her head. Tessa's hands tightened at her sides. The doctors exchanged looks of shame. They had all seen Mara working late. They had all accepted the help. And none of them had asked why she was the only one keeping records that actually made sense. Lucian finally spoke. Effective immediately. Elaine Mercer is removed from all clinic access. He looked at the legal advisors. Preserve every record, every invoice, and every transport authorization. Then he looked at Mara. What do you need next? Mara took a breath. She had imagined this moment differently. She had imagined shouting, walking out, leaving the building with her head high and never coming back. Instead, she felt tired enough to tell the truth. I need Daniel's transfer handled correctly, she said. I need every patient whose chart was touched to be reviewed, and I need a job where speaking up does not make me a target. Lucian nodded once. You will have it. Mara's eyes narrowed. That is not yours to promise. A small silence passed through the room. Then Lucian said, you are right. What is yours to decide? For the first time that night, Mara let herself look at the door. Beyond it was a hospital that wanted to hire her. A clean start. Better hours. No Lucian Vale. No clinic full of people who had laughed while coffee cooled on her uniform. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. The message was from the hospital supervisor. We have a position for you. Day shift. Start Monday if you want it. Mara read the words twice. Then she closed her eyes. The simplest thing would be to leave. And she could. She finally knew that. But through the boardroom glass, she could see Daniel's guard waiting outside the secured wing. She could see Tessa standing alone at the nursing station. She could see all the unfinished work that would remain after she walked away. Mara slipped the phone back into her pocket. I am taking the interview, she told Lucian. Elaine smiled faintly, thinking she had won something. Mara looked directly at her. But I am not leaving tonight. Lucian's expression changed, not relief, respect. Why? He asked. Mara closed the blue ledger. Because there are still patients in this building, And because I do not stay for people who use me, I stay for people who need me. Mara stayed until dawn. She reviewed every transfer record Elaine had touched. She called the receiving facilities herself. She checked the medication windows. She rebuilt 6 months of missing care from notes, printer codes, and the small details everyone else had treated as unimportant. Lucian stayed too. He did not stand over her. He did not interrupt. He brought her clean scrubs and set them on the chair outside the nurse's station. Mara looked at them. "Thank you," she said. "I should have noticed sooner," Lucian replied. She studied him. "That is not the same as fixing it." "No," he said. "It is not." At sunrise, the clinic board voted to remove Elaine permanently. Her access was revoked. Her contracts were frozen. The outside investigators received every invoice, every altered transfer order, and every record Mara had preserved. Valerie submitted a written statement. It was not enough to undo what she had done, but it was the first time she admitted it. Mara read the statement once, then she placed it aside. She had more important things to decide. That afternoon, Lucian asked her to meet him in the empty boardroom. The coffee stain was gone from her uniform, but Mara had kept the blue ledger in her bag. Lucian stood beside the glass wall. "I have a proposal," he said. Mara crossed her arms. "If it starts with money, save it. It does not start with money." He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a new clinic structure, independent nursing audit authority, full access to transfer records, the power to reject unsafe staffing plans, a permanent seat on the oversight board, and one final line. Mara Bennett held sole authority to approve or halt patient transfers. She looked up. "You are giving me control. I am giving you the authority you should have had before I ever walked in." Mara was quiet. Lucian continued, "You can accept the other hospital position. You can leave this building today. You can never speak to me again. But if you choose to stay, no one will ever call you the backup nurse in my clinic." Mara closed the folder. "You do not get to call it your clinic if the nurses have no power." Lucian nodded. "Then it is our clinic." That answer mattered. Not because it was romantic. Because it was accountable. Mara looked through the glass wall at the nursing station. Tessa was helping Mr. Hollis call his daughter. Daniel Russo was being transferred safely through the north entrance. Every detail Mara had fought for was finally being treated as essential. She picked up the folder again. "I will take the hospital interview," Mara said. Lucian did not hide his disappointment. "But I will also take this position," she continued. "On my conditions." "Name them." "I choose my hours. I hire my own nursing leadership. I report directly to the board. And nobody uses your name to silence staff." Lucian held her gaze. "Agreed." Mara added one more condition. "And if we ever try whatever this is between us, I do not become another part of your organization." Lucian's expression softened. "You do not belong to my organization." He stepped closer, then stopped a respectful distance away. "You belong to yourself." Mara let out a breath she had been holding for years. Then she smiled. It was not the careful smile she gave frightened patients. It was not the small smile she used when people underestimated her. It was real. "Coffee," she said. Lucian blinked. "Coffee. A clean one this time." For the first time, Lucian Vale laughed. A quiet, surprised laugh. "I can manage that." Mara picked up the blue ledger. "No," she said. "I will manage it." And when they walked out of the boardroom together, Mara did not walk behind him. She walked beside him. "If you were Mara, would you have taken the new hospital job or stayed to rebuild the clinic on your own terms?"